Hi guys, Chris again, and in this video, I wanted to do a little bit longer of a talk about how, as I guess, what am I? I'm technically an early millennial, late millennial. I don't know how that works, but I'll be 40 in a month. Okay, whatever that is. So I wanted to talk about how through most of my adult life, I have managed to remain almost completely debt-free. Now, I have had the normal stuff. I've bought a car, that kind of thing. But I haven't had any real major, like when you hear people on financial channels talk about how they're, $15,000, $20,000, $40,000, whatever dollars in credit card debt. I've never had any of that. Nothing like that. Nothing more than a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there that I typically pay off, usually within a month or two. Sometimes I'll buy something where maybe I'll have the money per se, but I don't really want to actually drop all of the cash on one purchase. Like sometimes I'll use a credit card and then pay it off over a month or two, maybe 3 or 4, but I don't carry like long-term balances on my credit cards, things like that. I mean, I've never really had any major debt. So several things I do for that. My living situation, I have always had, shall we say, alternative living situations. I have always found ways to keep the rent to a minimum. I have couch surfed. I have lived in my car. I have rented a room from random people off Craigslist. I think I've done that maybe twice now. I can't remember, once or twice. And currently, I do rent an apartment from my parents. There are those that would say, oh, that's terrible. You shouldn't do that. And I mean, it's a crappy little apartment, but it's like, I don't care. It's like I'm never even home anymore anyway. I'm on the road for work a lot. Sometimes I'll be on the road all week. I'm usually not home a lot. About the only thing I do in this place is sleep and make YouTube videos. So, yeah, I've had alternative living arrangements for pretty much my whole adult life. I've never actually gone out and said, okay, an apartment is $2,000 or whatever, and actually forked over the money. Until such a time that I'm in like a relationship or something, I don't care. I got my little, I'm short, so I got my little double bed and I'm happy. So I can live like I'm making good money, or I could dump all of it on a really crappy apartment. Like I don't see the point. Okay, so next thing I do that's probably next down on the list is I am very careful about the vehicles that I buy. I generally do not go out and buy the car I want or my dream car. And I technically at this point, I have the money to do it if I really wanted to. But I'm not willing to have that much of my disposable income tied up in an automobile. My opinion tends to be that until such a time as you can afford to buy a house, you cannot afford to own a $100,000 car. Even if you can afford the payments on the car and the maintenance and the gas and the insurance, I would still argue if you are not able to simultaneously afford to buy a home, then you cannot afford to buy that car. Maybe you disagree with me on that, but that's my take on that. So generally speaking, I'll own Honda Civics. I'd buy an Accord, although I've never bought one. I would buy one. I'd buy a Camry. I'd buy a Corolla. Those are pretty much the only cars I'd buy. If I were to jump up a notch, I would consider like an Acura TLX or like a Lexus ES or something like that. I'm a car guy, so I'm not really an SUV guy. I see SUVs as a waste of gas, mostly. I see four-wheel drive as an additional thing that can break. So I tend to go with vehicles that I find reasonably simple, that get good gas mileage and are fairly affordable. So I'd probably drive a Prius. I never have, but I would probably buy one, especially now that you can get like a fairly high spec one and the newer ones, fairly good looking car. Yeah, I'd probably drive that. But today I drive a 2017 Honda Civic. That car has never needed maintenance. It has never needed repair. All it has ever needed is standard maintenance. So oil changes, basic, basic stuff, and it gets like 50 miles to the gallon. If you drive it right, your average person is going to see like 30 to 35, but if you drive it to the very edge of gas mileage, you can get 50 to 55 out of it on some drives. Some drives you can't, but some drives, like some of the longer drives I do, yeah, sometimes I can get pretty good gas mileage out of it. I have always had a side gig. I have never had a time in my life. Before I was, maybe from 21 on, I have always had a side gig. I've always had at least one. I've always had at least one extra source of money, even if it's not a lot. I have always had an extra source of money. It's actually pretty funny because when I sold cars, I know our general manager didn't like the fact that I had a fairly decent, viable side gig, because they want you to know that you're not going to eat dinner if you don't sell that car. Whereas for me, it would have been nice to sell the car and get the extra money, but also at the same time, I wasn't like between a rock and a hard place, and they want you between that rock and that hard place. So I have generally always bought like used clothes at the thrift store, stuff like that. I have started buying my shoes and that kind of stuff new, just because I make pretty okay money now. So I'm like, okay, I can afford to buy shoes now. What's the point? I'm not one of those people that's about saving every penny. Like, I try to be creative, but also at this point, like, I can afford shoes, I go buy shoes. And then what was my last thing? No, that's everything. I think just getting creative with stuff. Take full advantage of the secondhand market, whether it be cars, computers, clothes, whatever. Take full advantage of it. Know how to shop for a deal. Look for creative, low-cost options for living. Keep your vehicle expenses to a minimum. I guess the other big one. I have not been to college. My general earnings trajectory and career trajectory have been about even to all but the absolute highest of my friends. I've got a couple of friends that are exceeding my own success, if you're measuring success in a financial point of view. But most of my friends are either below or right even with me, and so that includes the ones that have been to college and the ones that have not been to college. So I don't really regret not going to college. If I could have gone and become a deep sea explorer, if I could have gone into the military and been a fighter jet pilot, maybe something like that. But for the most part, I'm happy with the way things have turned out. So anyway, I hope you guys find this interesting and gives you some just ideas on how you can be reasonably debt free. And thanks for watching.